Hello all and welcome to today's Bailey Glasser webinar, Not in My House, Keeping Children and Teens Safe from Online Predators. If you have questions during today's program, please submit them to questions@baileyglasser.com. We'll be running through some slides this afternoon. If you have trouble seeing the slides, there's a hover in the middle of the screen that you can make the slides either larger or smaller. And with that, I will turn you over to today's presenter, Bailey Glasser, attorney and court-appointed special advocate, Sharon Iskra. Sharon, you ready to kick this off?
Yes, I am, Justin. Thank you. Welcome to my house, everyone. As Justin said, my name is Sharon Iskra. I have focused most of my professional career on serving children in one form or another. I was director of children's and urban ministries in a local church for 10 years. I currently, as a court-appointed special advocate, work with children weekly and represent them in domestic proceedings where abuse and neglect is alleged. I also advocate for children in my daily work here at Bailey Glasser. I'm currently representing 2 disabled youth in a hotly contested case against a residential care facility where systemic abuse by staff was occurring. Our firm vigorously pursues justice in cases like those. But we also want to make sure that we prevent exploitation of children wherever it might occur. And so, when we came across a case where a young lady was exploited and solicited online through her computer despite controls that everyone thought were safe, we wanted to make sure that something like that could never happen again. And so we put together today's presentation as a public service to you, because we recognize that you are the ones who can best be equipped to protect your youngsters. So, for a moment, think about your house and all the many things that you do to protect the people that live in it. You have a fence, you have an alarm system, maybe you have a dog. And from the time your children are very small, you teach them a healthy dose of skepticism about strangers. We don't talk to strangers. We don't let them in the house, people that we don't know. But now all of a sudden, when the pandemic hit, the whole world is online more than ever before. Children are online more than ever before, alone. And so are the predators. And they're becoming more and more sophisticated. So now, who is getting in your house? Past your guard, through the internet. On today's presentation, we'll talk about some of those dangers. Talk about how you can do your homework to stay one step ahead of those sophisticated predators, and how to talk to your kids. We're going to talk specifically about Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, and some of the other platforms that predators are currently using. And I'm also going to share with you a real-time demonstration of an app that you can install on your child's phone to help prevent some of these things from happening. Towards the end, I'll offer you a toolkit, which will also be forwarded to you post-session. So you'll have sources in hand to protect your young one. And all of this, we're giving you tips based on our legal experience. But we also know that you're going to have to tailor some of these to suit your child and your values and your family. So first today, let's talk about the scope of the problem. In 2018, 55% of domestic sex traffickers gained access to their minor victims through a text, a website, or a mobile app. The internet makes it so easy for a perpetrator to target and groom a victim. They do this anonymously, cost-free, and with very low chance of getting caught. Exploitation of children is now a billion-dollar industry worldwide, with human trafficking as one of the fastest growing illicit industries. The Internet Watch Foundation noted that last year there was a 45% spike in calls reporting suspected child abuse material online, which it attributed directly to the stay-at-home mandates. And exploiters' identities may surprise you. You may be shocked to learn that these are not just gangsters. They can be parents, extended family members, owners of restaurants, business owners and executives, even child care workers in your own neighborhood. Let's have a look at some of the statistics. These come from the Center National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And these are just relating to human trafficking victims. Those child victims rank in age from 1 to 17, with an average age of 15. 82% of those enticing the child were male. 72% of the victims were women and girls. Maybe none of that surprises you, but the next statistic probably does. In 2019, in Fairfax County, Virginia, there were human trafficking cases found in all 26 high schools. And these crimes began when the trafficker and the potential victim built a relationship through social media and networking apps. So who is vulnerable? Well, the short answer is anyone who uses the internet. But there's a common denominator. Traffickers recognize and specifically target anyone who feels unworthy or isolated or like they're a victim of hate. And that might include runaways and homeless youth, those in substance abuse, crisis or domestic violence situations, welfare systems, but it also includes those who have been bullied, shamed by their peers or excluded from a group. That sounds like a lot like yours and my youngsters today, especially now that COVID-19 has hit. We're seeing some numbers pop up on the slide now. Let's talk about what some of those mean. Guess, if you can, what is the average age at which a child gets a cell phone in the U.S.? You guessed 10, you are correct. See if you can guess the percentage of American girls who have access to a smartphone. If you guessed 97, you are correct. And the percentage of American boys with access to a smartphone is 95%. Now, can anyone guess how many texts the average American teen sends and receives in a day? Well, back in 2015, that number was 67. But by January 2021, a study revealed that girls now between the ages of 14 and 17 send an average of 187 texts a day. That is 5,610 texts every month, which of course leads us to wonder, how do they ever get anything else done? But the disturbing thing with that figure is how it relates back to the slide I showed you previously, which says the mean age for child solicitation is 15. And your American girls are now sending more than double the amount of texts as any other age bracket when they are 13 to 17 years old. So, where are they at risk? Well, you can have a look, the next slide. On virtually every platform, every form of social media, messaging apps, and even gaming platforms. The ones most used by traffickers include Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and a few others. So let's look at some specific case studies. Instagram. Your child may have Instagram. I know my children do. They have Snapchat, many, many other apps. But in 2018, Instagram specifically endangered two girls who were age 15 and 17. They were very nearly victims of a predator through Instagram. He created a fake profile based on the girls' profiles where they had indicated their interests and hobbies. He developed a relationship with them, arranged to fly them to New York for a video and dance shoot. Fortunately, these two girls were intercepted, but the predator simply deleted his profile and was not caught. Next, when we look at Snapchat, there are two specific concerns. First of all, you need to know who your friends are and who they aren't. Perpetrators can easily search for new victims using the Find Friends feature on Snapchat. Once the victim adds the perpetrator as a new friend, that person can track them with the Snap Map, which is a location sharing feature. As we'll discuss later, location sharing is a common feature kind of across the board on apps, but you're going to want to get in there and disable that function to protect your child. You know, apps in general actually are more dangerous than I think any of us had realized before. Kids love them, and they want what their friends have. You can download these instantaneously for free. It sounds so harmless, but apps are among the chief ways that perpetrators get access to your kid. A couple of the bad apps are shown here on the slide. TikTok. I know we've all heard a lot about TikTok recently. This is a platform in which your child can upload short videos. It's very, very popular with teens, but it's kind of gotten out of hand lately because now there are many, many messages that are vulgar, full of hate speech. A lot of abuse messaging goes on. Teens can use it to embarrass or retaliate against one another or engage in embarrassing pranks, especially against girls. So think twice about TikTok. Another particularly dangerous one is this Hive Social that's shown here. This too is an Instagram alternative. Users can incorporate music to their pages. It's hugely popular, over 340,000 users currently, and it looks really innocent, doesn't it? It's a little bee icon, and it doesn't look like it would be X-rated or adult, but this app is not at all for young people. It features things that I cannot show you in my slides today, like full frontal nudity and pictures of erections and bodily fluids and really bad language. So that's a concern. An additional concern with Hive and many of these other apps is that it allows people to comment and with links, and it encourages clicking from posts to other user handles that then carry you onto other profiles. That raises security issues because every time someone clicks, the circle of who has access to your child gets wider and wider. And so you want to be very careful to keep your little bees away from this hive. Kik is another chat app, which is hugely popular both among under 18s and among predators. Be careful with Kik. In 2019, the FBI uncovered literally thousands of children who had been victimized through this app. And a Forbes study around that same time in which they created fake 14-year-old profiles. Those profiles were harassed by men within minutes of signing up for Kik. So none of us want to expose our children to anything like that. But at the bottom of my slide is another shocker. This was news to me, and certainly the parents of this child didn't see it coming. The case of MS versus Collingswood. It's a New Jersey case back in 2017, even before the pandemic, in which a schoolgirl was solicited through her school-issued homework tablet. Out on a site called Doki Literature Club. Sounds innocent. But because the school did not have proper controls and limits and filters on those computers, the 21-year-old who was behind that literature club was able to reach the girl and start messaging her directly. He convinced her that he was romantically interested in her and that he wanted to meet her. He then threatened that if she didn't comply with his request, he was going to harm her family. She met him at a park, and he horrifically abducted her and sexually abused her. Thankfully, in this case, the girl was found and the perpetrator was criminally prosecuted, and the school board was made to pay a settlement of nearly $1 million. But none of us want that. What we want is to keep children safe from this ever happening. So we wish, if only this girl had known and been taught no internet secrets. If only her parents had known the things that you are learning today. Some of what we want you to know specifically is how perpetrators operate across all of these platforms. Some of the most common tactics are that they will pretend to be younger, or they may create an entirely fake identity, profiles and friendships based on common interests and hobbies with your child that they glean through looking at your child's profile. They will then develop a rapport and a trust through compliments and discussion of shared interests. They will then gradually begin to exploit your child's natural curiosity about sex, maybe by conversations and role playing, then gradually lowering those inhibitions over time, asking the child for sexually explicit images, sharing those images, and engaging in sexual discussions. If useful, they may offer some incentives such as money or alcohol or drugs or gift cards to entice your child. But ultimately what happens is that person gains control over your child through blackmail and coercion and threats of what may happen if demands aren't met. Well, you as parents, grandparents, teachers, and caregivers are the front line of defense for all of this. Now that I've terrified you, you're probably asking, what can I do? What do I do to protect my child? Well, no, you don't need to separate your child from all internet-connected devices. But you do need to, number one, do your homework. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but for now, good job. You're here, and you're already a little more informed than you were 15 minutes ago. But, you know, and we'll get in more detail in just a second, but point two is that you need to communicate with your youngster. So let's talk about that. Every source that I found in my research said the best line of defense, the best thing you can do is communicate with your youngster often and openly. You need to start that way younger than you think you should. Sources say 10. I would recommend even age 8. Start getting them ready to have a phone before you put the phone in their hand. Now, when you talk with them, you need to always be proactive and positive, not reactive or punitive. Not that any of us have ever done that, but the point is not to scare them to death. The point is to teach them to be wise and to keep the doors of communication at all costs. If you can imagine how a young child feels when he or she is exposed to something that they know they shouldn't see. Maybe it's hate speech, maybe it's violence, maybe it's pornography. They know they're not ready for it. They know they shouldn't have received it. And they already feel frightened and ashamed. But if on top of that, they're afraid to tell you because they're worried that they may be punished or that you may bring more shame on them and they fear getting in trouble, that just makes it so much worse. Your child then has to deal with it all alone. It becomes a secret. And over time, secrets become bigger. And sometimes lies have to be told to conceal secrets. And that is exactly what your perpetrator wants to have happen. That's where they operate, is in the dark. Remember, too, you want your child to be able to tell you in case they have shared something that they should not have shared. There may come a time when you need to intervene and fix some things. But if your child doesn't tell you, you're not going to be able to do that. Finally, you need to empower your child and make them realize that they're on a team with you to make this kind of abuse stop. You will need to teach them what I teach you later today on how to report things like this, not only to the government hotlines, but also to the platforms and the apps that they use so they can stomp out this form of abuse. And let them know that you do trust them with their phones and their computers, but that part of that trust is the social responsibility that is tied to handling such things. Number 3, we need to set some boundaries. You need to set a policy. You may even consider a formalized family use agreement that sets out which sites can be visited, what to do if bad content is found, hours of use, things like that. But your policy should include at a minimum that you must know all your child's online friends. And they cannot accept new friend requests without your approval. If your child already has a list of friends, you should likely sit down with them and ask them, who is this person? How did you meet? What is it that you talk about with this person? Another component of your boundaries in your family use agreement, I strongly suggest would be that you have no apps without approval. I know your teen is not going to like me for this, but you really do need to sit down with them and explore what apps they have and how they work and what they are used for. I know it's something your teen probably doesn't want to do, but much like when we teach them to drive a car, we teach them you have to wear a seatbelt. Whether you like it or not, that's the rule, and that's just what we have to do. So let's talk about your homework in a little more detail. As I mentioned, predators are increasingly tech savvy, but by doing this homework, you can be too, and you'll be one step ahead of them. I've listed for you here some good sources that you can use to evaluate social media and apps. The first is Common Sense Media. This gives advice for age-appropriate games and apps and other forms of entertainment. It also shows you safe chat rooms and social sites for kids. NetSmarts is another good source. It offers you age-appropriate online teaching. It even has videos that you can show your child to help them be a little more wise. The next one is my hands-down favorite, safetonet.com. Justin, are we able to screen share something from SafeToNet? See. There it is. Okay, so this is really neat. I wish we had had this when my kids were younger. SafeToNet is an app you install on your child's phone. It uses artificial intelligence in real time and behavior analysis, and also gives a smart keyboard that prompts your child to be aware of bad content and even coaches them for some responses they might make. You can see here, this child is being harassed. The smart keyboard is suggesting some content and telling them what to do. What a marvelous way to protect child. And, that's not spying on your child, but it's a very good teaching tool, kind of like training wheels to get them ready to handle such thing on their own. So you might consider that. All right, Justin, can we go back to that previous slide? The last thing I want to talk about in this regard is Facebook Messenger Kids. This is useful if you have children under the age of 6. You can limit their friend groups to just people that you approve and family members. This does not let you spy on their communications, but it does notify you when your child communicates and will allow you to delete content if something gets out that shouldn't be. So you might check that out as well. All right, so homework part 2. Some other things that you might consider doing to protect your child is turn on Safe Search in all your browsers, prevent nasty content from popping up. Turn off your location tracking. That's important, as I said, because people don't realize this, but even Instagram, even Facebook, if you take a picture, it's going to track where that picture is taken. And if your child then shares that, guess what? Anyone who gets that picture now knows where your child is and the places that they frequent. So with all your apps, you want to check and get in there and turn that feature off to protect against future harm. Cover all your webcams when not in use. We don't think about it, but just because we're not using our webcam doesn't mean that somebody else isn't using our webcams. So when not in use, you definitely want to cover those to protect your privacy. And then very important that you know where to report things like online solicitation or anything that makes you suspicious. This too will be sent to you in the slides post-session so that you can have it handy. But the Cyber Tip Line and missingkids.org are excellent national centers for reporting. They also have a 24-hour hotline shown here. And if appropriate, you may want to report such content to local police. And I would add this. I mentioned a little bit earlier, you probably want to report to the platform itself. Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, all of those platforms are required to self-police for bad content also. And if you let them know, they may be able to intercept and help track down perpetrators as well. So let's see, homework part 3, how to talk to your child or teen. I'm not going to read through all of these. They'll also be included in your post-session information. But some of the things that you probably want to tell them are that despite the fact that it might seem flattering to them at age 13 or maybe age 15 that this 22-year-old is expressing an interest in them and wants to know all about them, that's not normal. That normal adults don't correspond and flirt with children of that age. So you need to let them know that that is a red flag, along with some of the other things that you see here. Next, you want to teach them some netiquette. Netiquette. Okay, this might seem obvious, right? Do not post foul language, nudity, sexting, your personal passwords information. I know it seems obvious, but remember, these are the same children that you have to remind to brush their teeth or to take a shower. And so it definitely behooves you not to make assumptions that your child won't share this stuff. Then you should get in there and make sure that that's not happening. But beyond that, you need to teach your child how to respond to inappropriate content. First thing they can do is hit the back button and just get it out of their view. They can turn off the screen while they come and talk to you or another trusted adult about what to do. Then you can teach them how to report it to Cyber Tip Line or the application platforms themselves. Don't engage it. Don't ignore it. Do what this child did in this next slide. This is an actual clip from the Cyber Tip Line in which a child got a predator busted. The offenders here says, "You want to trade?" Offering to exchange nude pictures. The child's comment, I love this, "Bye, you're gross, keep some clothes on." That child made a report, turned it into the Cyber Tip Line, and shut down some really bad content, not only protecting himself, but protecting the next child and the next child. So kids are very, very capable, and so are you. This is the toolkit that I mentioned to you earlier that kind of condenses the things we've talked about today. You'll have it all in one place so that you can turn to it as needed. And let's see, we have one more slide here today, and that is the Parent's Guide to Smartphone Safety. Again, just another good summary and reminder and resource for you. You can turn to it as needed to answer any questions. And of course, we're here for questions too. In fact, I think, Justin, do we have some time to take a few questions today?
Yeah, we do. We actually received two during this program. We do, yeah.
Okay.
We actually received two during the program, and the first one being, what if I suspect my child is engaging with someone online?
Ooh, well, I know the temptation is going to be to like freak out and pull your child's phone and not let them be online anymore. But you need to take a deep breath, and you need to pull out your toolkit, and you need to engage in that one-on-one communication that I spoke about earlier. You're going to need to save that content, sit down and look at it together, process it a little bit, kind of help your child process it. Depending on what it is, I would say if your child needs some help, maybe even with a therapist, if it's really, really bad stuff, you might explore that. But you're definitely going to want to report it to Cyber Tip Line and authorities and, of course, the application platforms themselves. And remember, we're here to help too. You'll have my contact information later at the end, and you can always call us, and we can look at that on a more fact-specific basis for you. Yep, good question. Other questions?
The next one is, what if my child is accused of sending or receiving inappropriate material?
Ooh, that can be bad. Yeah, that can really, really scare you because there are criminal penalties for that. And it's usually it's very fact-specific. But, in West Virginia, I know, and in other states, that filming sexually explicit acts that involve a minor, that can be broadly defined, right? That's a felony. And circulating that material, even possessing that material is a felony. So the natural inclination is, whoop, let's just delete it, right? You don't want to do that either. Again, you want to sit down with your child and find out everything about this. How did they get it? Where did it come from? Have they sent it, right? Yeah, especially, and we've been on both sides of that here at Bailey Glasser. We've represented some people that had some stuff they shouldn't have had, and some people who received some stuff that they never wanted to receive, but, get called down to the principal's office, and what do? Don't delete that material. That can look very, very guilty if you simply delete it. It's going to look like destruction of evidence. So save it, contact authorities, and make sure that you make sure that you recognize your child has rights in this situation, right? Before they go down to give statements or are questioned by the school or anything that might like that, you're going to want to talk to a lawyer. Now, certainly we're equipped to help you here at Bailey Glasser. You can talk to us or any other lawyer that you trust to deal with that. But yeah, that's my best advice in that situation. So, well, it does look like it's time for us to wrap up now. But on a closing note, let me just console you and remind you that you are not alone in this either. This can be a scary world, but if questions come up for you, you can contact me here directly at this contact information. I and my team will sit down with you, talk with you on the phone, explore any legal ramifications of what's happening. And I would say there's no question too small or insignificant. We know that this is scary stuff, and there's no charge just to pick up the phone and call us. This is very important, not only to protect your child, but as I said, the next child and the next child who may be victimized if we don't all work together to put a stop to this. So thanks for joining us today, and be safe.